Hello, I'm Mark. I'm the host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have the privilege of having Jane Ashworth, Director of SMB and Channel for Lenovo. How are we doing, Jane?
I'm very well, thanks, Mark. Great to see you.
Yeah, lovely to see you too. So, Jane, look, I'll go straight into it because the reason we did the Women in Tech series was basically because there was no awareness in the market. It was a thing that was being talked about for the last 2 years, 3 years, and quite frankly, and I will put myself out to be shot at, most men I talked to about it, because I did talk about it because I was completely ignorant myself, they didn't care. They didn't care. They didn't really understand what it's about, etc. So today's show, I really want to raise some awareness about it and find out from someone who's passionate about it and supporter of it, how we can raise awareness and answer some of those questions. So one of the first questions I want to sort of find out from you is the Women's Festival next month, which is, I think it's great at promoting and celebrating success of women in the channel. But does it really get the message out there about trying to get more women in tech and why we're celebrating them? So I really want to get your view on that. Do you think it's actually the message gets out there?
So firstly, why do we do it? We do it because we've only got 16% of our workforce in technology is female. So that's the purpose. Does it get out there? I think, yes, it does. But are we getting the breadth of outlook that we need for it? And I think that's the key to it, right? Because we have a lot of great females in the technology industry, particularly in junior positions that want to kind of like move through the ranks, and it's a fantastic platform, women in technology, for, you know, advice, talks, information, workshopping, networking. I mean, you know, it's a fantastic platform, but it's only as strong as the message that gets out there, right, and the people that join. And I think part of the issue is, you know, and I'm sure we'll go on to this, you know, in a minute, but it's around trying to get females from other areas of the business and other areas of other industries in there to actually understand what technology is, you know, what the technology sector can bring for them and their careers. And I think that's the key to it. So how can we get some more breadth to the communication and get a more diverse set of people, not just females, by the way, males as well, to the event? Because here, that's the myth, right? This is not a female event as such. I
thought you could. I'm not. I swear, Jane, I'll tell you this. I promise you this. 2 years ago, I thought you couldn't attend if you were a guy.
Right? No.
Everyone I spoke to, they said, "Oh yeah, it's women's. You can't go to that because you're not a woman." It's like, really?
Yeah. No,
okay.
I mean, actually, maybe, you know, there's a message out there for, you know, all of those, you know, guys in the technology industry. Try it, because, you know, actually, there's a huge amount to learn for them personally, as well as obviously the, you know, the women in technology message. So for me, it's about breadth of communication. You know, how can we get more graduates in there? You know, is there something with, you know, many of, you know, people that I work with in the industry have sponsorships of different universities, do work with different graduate schemes. You know, how can we pull you know, these people in, you know, male and female, to understand, you know, and get a more diverse mindset into the technology sector? So I think there's lots we can do. But it's stepping up and understanding the benefits of that, and I think that's also the key, because it is about inclusiveness, Mark. It's not necessarily about the gender debate. It's about how can we make the technology sector more inclusive.
Yeah, because you mentioned there, you know, only 16% women, and that's the number that everyone keeps on talking about. It's been 10 years, it hasn't moved.
Yeah.
Why is it important to move? So when you say that, you know, we're celebrating women, it's only 16%. Great. So the men's argument would be, can we have a men's event, because there's only 84% men? I don't know. Again, it sounds crazy. It's like, well, because there's other industries that are very dominated by females or very dominated by males, and I don't know. Maybe there is movements now. Obviously, I'm not in that sector, but there seems a real push now on this women in technology. So why is it so important that we move the dial?
So for me, and a lot of my female peers in the industry. Well, I'll give you some facts, right? In the finance sector, 43% of executives are females. In the law sector, 49%. In the pharmaceutical sector, 69%. Those are all our customers, okay? So if we don't have diversity and this gender balance in technology, in decision-making roles, how do we know that we're providing the right solutions, the right product, the right decision making for our customers?
Do you know what?
That's the point.
Do you know what? No one's ever said that. That's the best answer I've heard. Because do you know what? I wouldn't think of that. I think actually, if you're saying to people, how do we know if we're getting this? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that question. So,
and if we have the same blends of people, and again, it's not about gender; it's about diversity.
Yeah.
Overall, if we don't have diversity in decision making, how are we making the right decisions for our customers ultimately? So that, for me, that's what it's about. And the more diverse that is, and it does create conflict, right? Because it creates a challenge in the discussion, but ultimately it drives the right decisions and the right offerings to the end user. And then you get better outputs, you get more success driven from that. So that's how I see it, because if you keep doing the same old, you're just going to get the same results, right? We just stand still. And you know what? We're in the technology sector. We should be moving ahead. We should be thinking about the needs of our customers. But if our customers are different to us, how do we know?
Yeah, it's frightening actually hearing that. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Do you think that there's companies out there that might talk a good game about saying they want to do something? So they might sort of the business owner, and I hear it myself. Business owner, just chuck a tweet out or something saying we're sort of supporting women in tech, but we don't really want to do anything about it. Or okay, just put something on the Facebook page that we're doing some charity cake baking, and that'll do the women's in tech sort of thing. So, and so they don't really support it, but they're sort of pretending to support it. So, if companies out there are really genuine, they think, do you know what? Hands up, we haven't really done anything about it, but we actually generally want to change and we want to do something about it now. What would be the sort of tips and advice you would think for them to start off to sort of think, right, this is the first sort of 2 or 3 things you've got to do?
We see a lot of noise. I mean, LinkedIn's great for it, isn't it, as well? We see, there's a lot of activity going on out there, and some of it is fantastic. See some great, best practice out there, but some of it, as you say, is also maybe just a little bit superficial. For me, it's about firstly recruitment. So really getting to grips with recruitment processes. For gender balance, the recruitment processes that are effective for men are not necessarily effective for getting best-in-class females, because we're not wired in the same way. You're not going to get the best out of a female if you put them in a position where they feel really backed into a corner, and under severe pressure. So I think we have to be mindful of that in our techniques. And I think, it's really challenging at the moment, isn't it? Obviously, with this whole, remote piece. We're just saying, I wish I'd been in the studio with you. It's not the same, virtually. But I think we have to consider that, because there's a lot of these new techniques that we've seen from recruiters, but it takes they're slightly impersonal, I would say, in the way that they come across. And that's not necessarily effective when trying to recruit bright female talent. And so I've seen a few examples of that actually myself over the last few months. I speak to a lot of females, as you can appreciate, in the industry, and it worries me, Mark, that we are scaring off female talent by the recruitment techniques that we've, found in this, hybrid environment that we're in. So that's the first thing. We really have to dig deep and really understand, are these techniques right for bringing on the talent that we really need? The second bit is, I suppose, once you've got them in, okay, how do you retain talent?
Yeah.
It's difficult. I'm very proud to say that 50% of my team are females, and that goes for my sales management team as well as my account manager base. But with that, you have to be very mindful about what those females are looking for, the flexibility that might have to come with it, because I'm a working mom. I've got 2 girls. It is hard sometimes, trying to juggle, kids. Mine are a bit older now, but, and work and full-time work. It's hard. And so, females in that situation appreciate the flexibility, but, that drives loyalty for them and the company as well, ultimately. So there's things like flexible working, there's things like, support. In my career, I have been very lucky to have found in each of the companies that I've worked for a sponsor, somebody that sponsored me and said, Jane Ashworth, she delivers, she's incredible, she needs to be in this position. And that's the way that I've progressed in my career. So it's really, really important that, again, for those of us that are in those kind of positions, that we actually say, hey, how can we actually be inclusive? How can we reach out to those females? How can I sponsor that person to make them successful and make sure that their abilities are seen in the company?
Do you know what? You've said a couple of things there that's almost touched something that I've had in myself, which I didn't even know would have happened. So to give an example, I had a girl that worked for me that had 2 children, and she had to go and pick them up from childcare from up the road, quite far up the road to be fair. And at 5:30, she had to bolt it out the door.
Yeah,
to literally get there, and she was so stressed about it. And you know what, Jane? It sounds horrible. I never even thought about saying to her, just go 5 minutes early, 10 minutes early. And even that, I was thinking, even now you said it, I was thinking, why didn't I just say go at 5:20? So she'd race and she'd only just get there. So she'd get stressed. And I'm thinking, why didn't I do that? And because, again, it's ignorance. I'm just blissfully unaware, because I'm sort of thinking, well, if Jane can go at 5:20, Jack can go down the pub at 5:20, and it sounds crazy, but I think a lot of men think that. I think they're thinking it's almost like, are they aware that females need flexibility? And even when you were saying it, I was thinking, oh my God, I made that girl.
Yeah. And you know what, Mark? It's not just about. I mean, I don't want to, use the kind of gender card, because actually there's a lot of dads out there that do just as much. My husband in his career has had to do a lot of the childcare, because of the demands of my job. There's a lot of men out there who have the same responsibilities. So again, it's about this inclusiveness piece, and around it's being mindful. And here's the other point. Emotional intelligence is a big thing. Some of us have it. Some of us are not so good at it. But so my advice is also dig deep and think about that too, because there are behaviours, there are signs, and if you're really looking and you're really, really listening to that person,
you'll see.
You will see and you'll understand what's causing them the the challenges, and also you'll be able to help them find solutions to that as well, which again, going back to what we were saying, drives the loyalty of that employee for the company.
And I think Jane, if there's anything that's been good about COVID, which is obviously not, it's obviously distasteful to say that, but I think forcing people to have flexibility now and suddenly thinking, actually, that then, you know, Jane's picking her kids up at 4 o'clock, oh, she's not doing nothing after that, or whatever it is. I think that's gone out the window now. And I think people are very much accepting that, you know, people have lives and they're trying to work around their work around that life as well. And they aren't just like, excuse my French, taking the piss. People just thought, actually, oh, Jane's just gone off to pick her kids and then she doesn't do nothing after that. You know, that would have been maybe not you, Jane, but that would have been the opinion. But that would have been the opinion, and I think that's hopefully now gone out the window, because I think most people want to give people the flexibility to do the job, and I think if anything good can come out of that, and you know, these sort of types of shows where we're showing about enhancing people to get into the industry, you're right. You know, once we've got women in the industry, if we're not giving them that platform, they will just go anyway. If there is no flexibility, if there is no, they've got childcare issues, or they've got walking dogs at lunchtime, or whatever it is, if there's no flexibility, people will just leave anyway.
I think also, you know, I'm a great believer in, you know, it's about the results, Mark. It's about results, and different people, you know, will get to the same endpoint in different ways, and it's just being mindful of that. You know, there's no right or wrong to it. It's just understanding the individual, whether they're male or female. Yeah,
absolutely. One question I wanted to ask you as well is, what do you think the one thing men can do to be more allies of women in tech? And one of them, and I'll caveat that, you know, one of them is obviously awareness. And I think there's a lot of awareness from the general consensus in the IT channel about men's the problem. They don't, because I hear that all the time. I get a lot of people come up to me. It's like, why? I've had people come up to me saying, why am I even doing it? Why is it even an issue, Mark? What are you doing? And through education myself, it is an issue, and it's going to affect all of us. So what can we do for men to be more allies of women in tech?
I think it's what we can all do to be allies of women in tech. So firstly, I'd say it's around the whole emotional intelligence piece.
Yeah.
You know, particularly in senior roles, executive roles, there are, as you're aware, there are very, very few females, very few of 5% of us.
Leadership.
Particularly in, I would say, external sales, so sales-facing roles, it's even more minimal. And you know, I think it's about being mindful of behaviour. So it's really easy, isn't it? You know, I've been in the industry for quite some years. I was in consumer electronics prior to that. They're very, very male-dominated industries, both of them. But it's easy to get into pack-like behaviour is probably the best way of describing it. So you know how it works, right, Mark? You know, you've seen it. You know what I'm talking about. You know, all the kind of boy talk, the lad talk, the dirty jokes, that, you know, all this kind of stuff. And you know, that's fine. But just be mindful of the diversity in the group, and does everybody appreciate that at all times, right? You know, it's easy to get carried away with that, is what I would say, in pack-like behaviour. So just check in with yourself, and just to be mindful of how that's impacting others around you, because you know we've been there. You know, we've all been in those situations, and we can kind of understand how that impacts. So that would be the first thing. And again, it relates back to emotional intelligence. The other thing I'd say is going back to the sponsorship bit. That is so important. So, you know, for all those guys out there who have got, you know, they can see that female talent. Do you know what? Be their sponsor. Tap them on the shoulder say, do you know what? You are incredible. You know, I want to help you here, and be their PR engine. Help them, because us females are really bad, really bad at bigging ourselves up, at talking about what we do. You know, we don't have, you know, it's just the way that females are wired, right? We don't have the egos. And so we need, you know, the guys and the others out there to support us, to say, hey, you are fantastic at what you do. And I'm gonna tell that to the business and to the wider audience, you know, and I'm gonna big you up. So for me, it's kind of like, I'd say to any guy out there, go and understand who your female talent is, and you know what, help them sponsorship and their PR.
I love that. I'm going to do that myself. I love that, and I think that's great advice, because you are right. Because I get men apply for everything. They can't even do the job and they apply. If they see one thing on the job spec that thinks they can do it, they apply. Whereas when I see women apply, they say, "Oh yeah, I didn't apply for that. So I only had 9 out of the 10 things." It's like, you had 90% and you didn't apply for it. So yeah. it is a thing. That one thing I wanted to ask you around job specs. Do you think the language of job specs puts people off, i.e. new business hunter, aggressive, tenacity, go-getter, you know, and women look at that and think, that's not really for me. I'm more teams, collaboration, teamwork. Do you think that language puts people off?
It gets the same results, right? But
yeah, it does.
Couldn't agree more. In fact, at Lenovo, we've had a huge review of the way that we advertise jobs, and we have rewritten every single job spec for that very reason.
That's great.
And it's the simple things. It sounds so basic, doesn't it? But actually, you know, it goes back to the recruitment stage we spoke about. Even that one vehicle, that job specification, it's a representation, isn't it, of the culture of the company.
It is,
and that's incredibly important, you know. Particularly, what you also find is, Mark, as you kind of move through the ranks, is that culture for females becomes more and more important, rather than pay or, you know, title. It's like, what culture am I working in? It's really important, and job spec has a lot to do with that in the initial stages.
Yeah, because as a man, I don't think anyone looks at job specs. I'm thinking, why would anyone read the job spec? And yet I hear females look at it and said, "Oh, 0.7, you said this or that," and I'm thinking, why are you even reading it? You know, the job title says X, you've done that, just apply. But they don't, and I think it is important through the series that we've done. Because again, I hold my hands up. I was, you know, I'm in recruitment for 20 years. I was ignorant to that, and now I've started to advise when I'm getting job specs through. I'm thinking, you know, you said you wanted a female. This sort of language is probably not going to put them off. And I might even say to them this, Jen, I might say, look, now I'm not going to read it. You're probably not going to read it. But if you want a female to apply, she's probably going to read it. So she's not. There's no point even doing that. And I think it's a really important point, because, and again, and it's not just about women. It's about inclusion. You know, if you want an inclusive company where people are going to apply and think, actually, that's where I could work and I could fit in and be part of something. It's not a boys' club or a boiler room or whatever it like is. Because let's be honest, there's still lots of companies out there like that. Very much so, and hopefully it's going to change over these years. I think even a small part, and I didn't think that was an issue. That small part of that language is really important. So I'm really pleased that Lenovo have done that, because again, I'd be thinking, it sounds really, but I'd be like, who cares about the job spec? You know, who really reads it? But people, it does make a difference, and we've started to see different results ourselves by changing as well. So I think that is a definite thing.
You know, the other thing, Mark, is though, sorry, on that point, is, you know how it works in our sector, and it does in a lot of sectors, right? It's kind of like tap you on the shoulder. Oh, I've got a mate who would be interested in this role. So again, I challenge the men out there to say, the next time you've got a vacancy and you're thinking about putting somebody in that, see whether you can find a male and a female candidate.
Yeah, Because again, I wouldn't get another job if it wasn't a mate of a mate who touched in the shoulder. That's the problem. I don't want to come up against a balanced panel of candidates. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get a job. But no, you're right, because I'm hearing again. Joe Bloggs will be good at that. Joe's a mate of Joe Bloggs who plays golf with him, and it does happen all the time.
Yeah.
And I think you're right, because one of those things is actually making. I was actually speaking to and someone else actually saying about interviewing people as well. If you get two people saying, I'm 43, bald, typical guy, if I get someone very similar to me interviewing someone, we might agree, we might disagree. Now, if me and you interviewed someone, there might be some debate if you're right or not, because we've got different views. And I think that's really important about in the interview process as well. Please don't, for the companies out there, if you want diversity or let's say inclusion, but it's certainly females, there is no point having an all-male panel of similar people interviewing a female. There's got to be some sort of, I think there has to be a female on the panel interview. Yeah,
and you're so right, because not that I want to, at Lenovo we do that as well. So if we're interviewing, we always make sure that there is a diverse group of people on the interview panel. It makes a huge difference. People's perceptions of each other are also varied, right? But it kind of going back to what we were saying earlier, is that diversity of opinion is actually really good. It's really effective, because ultimately you'll get hopefully the best candidate from it.
Because when you interview people, I don't care what anyone says, human nature is to sort of almost see similarities in them of what you are. So for me, if someone comes into me and starts talking about other boxing or football, they're hired. It doesn't matter what they can do. I'm that easy to convince about anything. They're hired. But that's not good to have diversity inclusion if they can do the job. So I think it's spot on. So companies out there, if you are, especially on the panel interviews, if you're getting to second stage and you're having 3 similar males or under the other way, 3 similar females, and you're getting that diversity, I don't think that's a good thing. That's a good thing. But last couple of questions, Jane. So I think I know the answer to this already, because you've almost answered, but do you think there is enough out there to get more women in the industry? And if not, what would you recommend? How can we actually get more women in the industry?
I think that we, firstly, it goes back, we've spoken about recruitment, but I think for me, we need more role models.
Yeah.
And we need role models who, are honest and credible, personable, who are, talking about the benefits of the tech sector for careers. And I think we do somehow need to find a platform for that, and that's why your series of channel chats have been fantastic, and you're highlighting some amazing female talent that we've got in the sector. How do we get a bigger voice so that we can really start to show what an amazing sector we work in, and drive some excitement, say, hey, it isn't what you think. There are there are so many different aspects of the technology sector. It could be sales, it could be engineering, it could be marketing. Actually, this is what it is. And I think for me, it's about bringing to life what it's like to work in the tech sector and to drive some excitement around it. So that's what, hence me talking to yourself today. I do a lot of work with CRN and I have a network from that of some amazing females that, some names are not even known, to us in the wider audience, but do incredible jobs. And, it's about trying to come together as a group and really start to highlight the benefits of the sector. But again, also the wider audience, to start talking about it too, to start thinking about it in a different way, and about thinking about the benefits of talking like that and the benefits that can bring to their businesses. So I think, it's all the stuff that we've spoken about, with those role models, you know. So we need to find them, but more importantly, we need to profile them to have a bigger voice, rather than the usual suspects is probably the best way of saying it. And I mean it in a very
diplomatic way.
How can we make it more diverse in terms of voice?
No. My last question, Jane. You've obviously had a successful career, and you obviously are a role model to people out there that maybe they do see you or they don't see you. So as a role model and as a successful person in our industry, there will be a lot of females that would love to emulate your career. Yeah. So my last question is this: what advice would you give a female that would love to emulate your career and get to the top into that leadership role in the tech industry? Maybe they're a partner now doing a little sales role or in help, but they want to get to the top. They want to get to a career what you've had.
Yeah. Well, just to start this point, you know, my career has been quite diverse. I haven't always been in the tech sector. You know, I started my career actually at Kodak, believe it or not, back in the day. I'm showing my age now. Kodak Tower, if anybody remembers it, Hemel Hempstead. And then I moved to Sony, and I worked at Sony for about 13 years actually.
In Weybridge.
In Weybridge, back in the heyday. We're talking, you know, about the launch of plasma TV, mini disc, you know, Walkman, all those brands. It was pretty amazing working for that company. But it's it was a very male-dominated company. And it's, you know, you build resilience. I think that's the thing, you know, you're building resilience as you go through. The point was that at Sony, they had a policy where you pretty much changed your job role every 2 years. So I was very, very privileged to have a lot of different experience over those 13 years. And I had as well as that, I had an incredible sponsor. He was a guy called Howard Marsh, and he believed in me, and he was the reason why I was promoted. And I was the only female executive at the time, and I was pretty young at that point. But he sponsored me, you know. And then I decided to move into tech. I decided that actually, you know what, I've done this bit, but I need this part of it, of my, you know, to build my experience here in the kind of the fast-paced, you know, high-tech industry. And that's why I went to HP. Again, I had an incredible sponsor called Pascal Bourget. He actually bizarrely works for Lenovo now, but so for me, my advice is those two things.
Yeah.
Don't be too rushed to progress up vertically. Moving horizontally and building your experience is incredibly important. In fact, it's more important than rushing and moving up the ladder, because it's only that experience and the different elements of it that are going to really start to mold you into a really strong businesswoman and give you different perspective, which that is the point of difference that you will have over any other male who maybe has gone up the ladder vertically. So for me, it's about that rounded experience. Don't underestimate that, and don't be too quick to think, oh, okay, I need to, you know, get to the next level. It's not necessarily about that. And actually, that's not just advice for females, that goes for men as well. Actually, it's incredibly important. So for me, that's the biggest point, with the support of a sponsor. Not to be underestimated.
Would you say, and I did say that was my last question, but I just want to ask something on the back of that. Would you say it's good for females to seek out a mentor or a sponsor? Because, you know, you mentioned about, you know, what men can help, actually going out and seeing a female and saying, look, I'm going to help you. I'm going to actually sponsor you and push you forward because you're absolutely brilliant. What if you're absolutely brilliant, but no one's actually coming up to you? Do you think women should go up to men that they think can help them and say, look, I want a sponsor, I want a mentor, I want someone to actually help me and guide me actually through his career? Because it's not just women that can do that. It's men can help, obviously, can't they?
It works both ways, right? It goes back to the point you made earlier about, seek out your female talent, sponsor them. But, you are amazing. Be ballsy. Reach out to people. If you are serious about your career, go and do it. Don't be shy. Because you know what? You may not have the confidence in yourself, but that person, that company, whoever you're working for, and whether it's inside the company or outside the company, seek out somebody who you feel you have a connection with, who can also help you with the breadth of experience they have. And don't be shy, because honestly, I would say that to all of the females that I know, whatever position they're in, come and talk to me. I am more than happy to help people. And all of the wonderful females that I network with will say exactly the same thing. So all of those great females that you've been interviewing, Mark, I'm sure, would be up for that as well. When I speak to any of them, they have a passion for supporting females, through their career progression. So yeah, don't be shy.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong in asking.
Yeah. Jane, that's the end of the show. You've been a fantastic guest. Thanks very much.
Thanks for joining us and listening to another episode of our Channel Chat podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard and are listening on iTunes, please could you give us a review and subscribe in order to get the newest episodes as soon as they're released. Otherwise, as always, we release an episode every Thursday at midday, so hopefully you can join us then.